All right, everybody, back with another one. We're going to talk about Christmas in this episode. So we're going to take a deep dive into um, basically whether or not Christians should be celebrating Christmas at all. And I think there's two major schools of thought on this right now. Um, you have a lot of, people in America that celebrate Christmas. You have a lot of Christians that celebrate Christmas, and they celebrate it in different ways. Some people celebrate it, with the focus being on, the birth of Jesus Christ and, whatever events their church, is engaging in. And then you have the other people who pretty much celebrate all the mainstream stuff for the holiday. Um, but there's a new school of thought that's kind of been popping up over the last, maybe 10 years or less. There's a lot of younger people, especially millennials, but probably more so Gen Z now. But I think it could also be a lot of millennials too, because a lot of millennials are at the ages where they're having children or they have children, they have families, and they're starting to think more seriously about, how they raise their children, including, what religion they're a part of, what holidays they celebrate. So um, there's a section of society, I guess you could say, um, specifically within the millennials and the Gen Z generations that are thinking about Christmas differently. Now you can call them conspiracy-minded people or whatever, but there's a lot of people in those two generations that are looking at Christmas as though the entire holiday is fake and evil and should not be celebrated at all, and are pretty much boycotting Christmas. So what I kind of want to walk through today is um, where Christmas came from. Obviously there's a lot of traditions that fall within the overall Christmas holiday, and every family celebrates these traditions differently. They celebrate the holiday in its entirety differently. Um, but there are, pretty much common things that everybody does, no matter, who you are. Most people celebrate Christmas with a few similarities. And I kind of want to walk through where a lot of that stuff came from. And then we're going to, come to the conclusion of whether or not Christians should even be celebrating Christmas. So there's a lot of talk with the millennials and Gen Z speaking about Christmas having pagan roots, and that's why it should not be celebrated at all, and all of the traditions that go along with it should be abandoned. And a lot of the traditions date back to different pagan cultures throughout time, but specifically the pagan festival of Saturnalia or the winter solstice. So these were big events that went on back then with pagan cultures, and they would celebrate worshiping their gods with all these traditions, and some of those um, roots kind of led to or possibly are dated back to some of the traditions that we celebrate today with the holiday of Christmas. There's also a lot of people that believe that Jesus was not even born on December 25th, which at this point, the Bible does not say. It's not provable. I think that at some point in time, people have kind of narrowed it down to it's likely December 25th. If you take the different calendars throughout time and, work some sort of formula up to land on, maybe around December, the end of December. Also because the calendars were different back then, and we didn't have the months that we have now, which totally changed the way that the seasons break up and everything. If you look back at previous calendars, um, I think April was typically the beginning of the year because it was spring, so it would be, we would basically begin the year with all of the flowers and the plants and everything coming back to life, and that would signify a new year. Um, somehow that got changed along the way. And, you know, we basically got to the point where we are at today, where we have 12 months in the year and either 30 or 31 days in each month. But what the funny thing is most people don't even realize this. We technically have 13 months. If you look at your calendar for the entire year, there's always going to be 4 months that have 5 full weeks in them. So technically, there really should be another month. We should have 13 months. But besides that, it makes a lot of sense that April would be the beginning of the year, because you're coming out of the winter, you're coming out of the dark season, the time where, you know, it gets darker earlier, and there's less daylight in, in a typical day. Also, it snows and it's cold, so a lot of the plants and vegetation die. So it makes sense that that would be like the end of the year, and then the new year would start fresh with all of these beautiful plants and flowers coming back to life. But regardless, we really don't know the exact date of Jesus's birth, and it's hard to also, figure that out too, because it was a different time back then, and a lot of people compare it to, um, you know, winter or December where they live. But this is the Middle East, the desert, so it might not be as cold. I mean, the desert doesn't get cold at night, but it might not be as cold, or even a different type of climate, whether it's humidity or whatever, in the evening hours when Jesus was born, in the Middle East at that time than in, Wisconsin at that time today. I mean, they might have 2, 3 feet of snow and think, well, how could Jesus be born in a manger, and survive the cold and the snow? It's a different landscape. It's a different environment. It's a different ecosystem. Also a different time in history. So we really don't know. But there are some people that believe that Jesus was actually born on September 11th, because that's an iconic date in the Bible, at least like biblically, for like historical events and stuff like that. And there's a lot tied around September 11th as being a big date in America too. So that's all just people, I think, trying to figure out what works for them and what's believable for them. But we really don't know when Jesus was born, what date. However, it doesn't change the fact that he was born. He was a real man. He walked the earth, and he lived a life that changed the world forever. So Christmas itself is supposed to be celebrated with that in mind, the focus on the birth of Jesus Christ. But somehow along the way, we all got, because things always change over time, and different generations will do things differently than their ancestors just because they didn't live through or experience that event. But let's look at some of that stuff. How do we get here today? Why do people celebrate Santa Claus in a sleigh with reindeer, and he flies around the world, and he has superpowers? He's magical, and he has all these little elf creatures that help him deliver gifts to every single person in the world who believes in him. But he also has time to stop at everybody's house who doesn't and gives them coal, So it's kind of funny, and if you really listen to it, it sounds ridiculous. But for some reason, people promote this tradition, and they even promote it and push it on their children. But if you break it down, each thing kind of does, relate to some historical event tied in with the theme of the birth of Jesus Christ. And some of those traditions can be seen as, biblically sound, but many can't. So if you look at, just take Santa Claus for a moment. A lot of people believe that Santa was invented by Coca-Cola in the early, 1900s, and they came up with a marketing campaign to sell more products. And, Coca-Cola, I believe, was the first company to ever depict the character Santa Claus, in any way where it was like a commercialized, character that people, now had like an idea as to what that, you know, person or whatever was like, and brought the character to life, so to speak, with their marketing campaign. So that is true that they were the first company to actually use a marketing campaign and use Santa Claus in a marketing campaign to, sell more products, but ultimately ended up, blowing up the Santa Claus character to like stardom. And then like anything else in life, it just builds and builds and builds. And before you know it, you got, Santa Claus with reindeer, a sleigh, and then there's Elf on the Shelf and all these things that spiral out of that. Um, but if you really look at the character of Santa Claus, a lot of people say that he's like a caricature or, you know, a depiction of Saint Nicholas, who was allegedly a real person who existed at one point in time. And his whole thing was that he was an old man and he brought people gifts out of the kindness of his heart just because he wanted to. And, I guess he wanted to spread joy and stuff. And, you know, his generosity and the things that he did in his life were so influential that the Catholic Church actually made him a saint. So, you know, that character of Santa Claus may have evolved out of a real person. So to say that, quote unquote, Santa Claus is not real is pretty much true, but it also is a little bit false because it's based on a real person, allegedly. And then, like anything else, that evolves over time and snowballs into something bigger and greater than even that person. So, regardless, Santa Claus may or may not be real. Obviously, the character of the magical person that goes around giving people gifts is not real. But the depiction of Santa Claus could be based on a real person. And it's a nice story. It's a nice, if you really think about it from like the context of a folk tale. It's a nice folk tale to, tell your children. If it was just a simple book about a man who, out of the kindness of his heart, went around giving people gifts just because he wanted to, unconditionally, wasn't expecting anything in return. Overall, that's a good life lesson to teach your children. Sometimes it is a good thing and a nice thing to just do things for others or give things to others without expecting anything in return. So the message itself is a nice message. However, the Santa Claus character has evolved into something so commercialized and big, and it's overshadowed and taken away from the true meaning of what Christmas was supposed to be, which was about the birth of Jesus Christ. But if you look at reindeer, a lot of people thought reindeer were fictitious characters, that, they were these magical creatures that flew and carried Santa's sleigh. Reindeer are real, actual creatures that exist, and they walk the earth right now till this day. You can actually see them in certain countries like Canada, or maybe some of the northern states in America, like Montana and North Dakota, where there's a lot of snow. It's cold. Areas where you might see moose. You'll probably also see reindeer, but they are real creatures that actually exist. It's kind of like in the Bible, how growing up, people thought like unicorns were, fake, made up characters, and a rainbow was like somehow associated with them, but they didn't realize that unicorns are mentioned in the Bible, and the rainbow was, also mentioned in the Bible as being given to people after Noah's flood, after the flood that Noah's Ark and that whole story. It was a sign from God that He wouldn't flood the earth again. So, unicorns apparently exist or existed. They might just exist in heaven. We don't know, but apparently they are real creatures. And, so many people think that they're just, fake made up characters, but they're mentioned in the Bible. Also, like I said, reindeer are real. So, there's a lot of young people that think maybe reindeer are just fake creatures that fly Santa's sleigh around, but they're actually real animals that exist. Also sleighs too. These are real devices that people use to get around on the snow. They're used all the time in Alaska and really cold northern states and countries to be able to navigate on the snow. And a lot of times, you have like sled dogs pull the sled, and they either pull people or merchandise or supplies or whatever, and that's how they get around on the snow. But we associate sleighs with Santa. My point in all this is that number one, a lot of these things are rooted back to real things in real life, and they're not just made up fictitious stuff for this story of Santa Claus. But number two is they're not inherently evil, right? So many people are getting all bent out of shape. Like I said, some of these more conspiratorial minded people that are against, Christmas, and they're doing everything they can to block out the, um, holiday from their lives or their children's lives, and kind of boycotting it. They're basically boycotting real things, uh, thinking that they're evil, right? If Santa Claus is a fake character, but he's based on a real person, that doesn't make the character evil, right? Um, Reindeer are not inherently evil because they're associated with this, holiday of, you know, all this made up stuff. So my point is that people get carried away with, um, being like so aggressively against something because of one side of it that they're not particularly thrilled about. They will boycott everything and just tie everything in and lump it all in with that, saying it's all evil. I think what a lot of these people are upset about is the commercialization of the holiday and how it's become uh, way bigger than, like I said, the true meaning of Christmas, which is supposed to be based around the birth of Jesus Christ. But there are some pagan roots. I'm not disagreeing with that, right? It talks about in the Bible how some people did bring, trees from the outside into their home and decorate them with gold and silver and worship them as false idols. So at the time, the pagans did do this, and now people do it today. But there's a caveat to all that. So in the Bible, in Jeremiah 10, is where it talks about people cutting down the trees, taking them into their homes and decorating them, like I said. But just because the pagans did that doesn't make it inherently evil, right? The point of that Jeremiah 10 was to explain how the people of that time, the pagans specifically, were worshiping their false idols, um, by making the tree their idol on purpose. It's a completely different thing if somebody has a real tree or a fake tree or whatever in their home and they decide to decorate it for Christmas. As long as they don't worship it and it becomes like a false idol to them, where they become obsessed with it. Like some families, you'll have maybe like the mom, she's like super into Christmas, and it's her tree and it has to be perfect and every ornament has to be on it in the exact place that she likes it every year. And if anybody touches the tree, it's a huge deal. And she gets upset if something goes wrong with the tree. That is a person who made that decoration their false idol. But a person who just has a Christmas tree because it's part of the holiday tradition, sets it up in their home, slaps a couple decorations on it, and the tree falls down and the decorations break and, the tree goes on fire, but nobody's hurt. And that person goes, all right, let's clean up the mess and, move on with our lives. That's not a false idol. So that person is not doing anything wrong just by having a Christmas tree in their home. It's when you idolize it, when you make it so important to you that you put it on a pedestal, you know, that's what Jeremiah 10 was talking about. That was the point of it, was about the false idol worship of it, not the immaterial thing. If that were the case, every indoor plant would be evil, right? You're bringing something that grows outside into your home. If you have a little micro garden in your kitchen and you grow, herbs to cook with, that's evil because it grows outside. You cut it down, you brought it inside. That's where I'm saying, like, it keeps going down this path where it can't be that if you take a tree from outside inside, it's evil. Then you're saying everything that grows from outside inside is evil. Think about what homes are made out of. They're made out of wood. You're cutting down trees and you're building the home with the wood. So it's not logical, but that's also not what Jeremiah 10 was talking about. It was the focus on the false worship, the false idol worship of that thing. That's where the pagans went wrong. And I'll go more into this in a little while, but I'll get back to that. See, the thing is, the Bible doesn't actually tell us to celebrate the birth of Jesus, but it also doesn't tell us to not celebrate the birth of Jesus. So it's probably best to read the Bible and, read about what happened with the birth of Jesus so that you know exactly what you're celebrating. That's the amazing thing about the story of Jesus and his, birth. It actually predates his birth. It goes back to the Old Testament. That's why the Bible is about, um, basically about Jesus. The whole thing is basically about his coming, um, his birth and resurrection, and then his return again in Revelation. But if you look at the Old Testament, there's a few books that prophesied about Jesus' coming. Specifically, I think Isaiah 7:14 talked about it, which was allegedly written maybe like 700 years before his birth. Also, other books in the Old Testament like Micah, Hosea, Psalms, these all speak of the coming Messiah. But specifically in the New Testament, the books of Matthew and Luke detail the birth of Jesus Christ. So basically, the story in a nutshell is, I believe at that time, Caesar, who was the like king, he had put out a decree that everybody had to go back to their hometown and pay taxes. So Joseph and Mary traveled back to Bethlehem to do that. But while they were there, Mary went into labor, and they tried to get a room at an inn. That's the famous story about there was no space in the inn. They tried probably, I think, to go to many different inns, and none of them had room. There were all no vacancies. Obviously, because at that time, I believe everybody was in town to pay taxes. So, they had no choice. They were looking, for what they could do. And then I think it was Joseph that, either felt compelled or he saw the barn as an opportunity, um, to shelter them and to have a soft, comfortable place for the baby to be born. And then basically he was born. He was born, and they put him in a manger. The manger was like basically where they would store the food for the animals in the barn. At the same time, there was a bunch of magi, or wise men that were called by God to go find the birthplace of the newborn king, who would be the king of the Jews. And so they were told to follow the star in the sky, would be the biggest star, which is what we call the North Star or whatever. Um, and on their way to find him, um, they had run across King Herod. King Herod at the time was the king of the Jews, essentially. And he was a violent and aggressive and mean king. And he felt threatened when these wise men were asking him, how do they find, where do they go to find the new king, or whatever it is that they were saying. They were basically explaining to him what they were doing and where they were journeying to. And so he told them, tell me when you find this king so that I can worship him too. But the truth was that he was, going to kill him because he didn't want somebody to threaten his throne. So the wise men sensed that from God, and they ended up never returning to tell him. But they did make it to the birthplace of Jesus, and they brought gifts, and they were, presenting the gifts to Joseph and Mary and Jesus in honor of his birth. And everybody knows the gifts were frankincense, myrrh, and of course, gold. Now, if you go back to the tree, like I said before, the pagans used to decorate their tree with gold and silver, but gold. And, gold is essentially money. And gold is, something that's made from the world. It's of the world, right? So does that make gold inherently evil? No, because God created gold, right? And apparently, and it's described in Revelation, but also I think other places in the Bible, um, heaven is lined with gold. The streets are made of gold, and there's gold everywhere. And people who have had near-death experiences, they testify to this as well, what they've seen. So if God likes gold, and he made it part of heaven, he also made it part of the earth. Gold is not inherently evil because the pagans used to decorate their trees with it, right? Also, the wise men were called by God to go find Jesus, and they brought with them gifts. And one of the gifts was gold. So gold is not evil, and gifts are not evil, right? If the wise men brought gifts to Jesus, and we give gifts today, and they quote unquote allegedly come from Santa Claus, just because those two are parallel, they're similarities, doesn't make gifts in general evil, right? So you don't have to boycott gift giving for Christmas just because it's become so commercialized. But you see, the beauty in all this was um, God made it really humbling to bring the King of Kings, the King of the Jews, the King of all the people on earth, and the Messiah into the world in this way. He had him born in a barn, which was smelly, gross, filled with a bunch of dirty animals, and he was placed in a manger where the food that the animals eat, which is usually scraps and all that other stuff that's like the no human would want it for themselves. Um, he was placed in that. So the beauty of it was that it was so humbling. This man would be the king of everyone and save us all. But his entrance into this world was the most humbling it could possibly be, to show his children that he truly loves them and, you know, uh, was not above them in that moment because he wanted to save them. He wanted them to be, renewed, right? He wanted them to be born again. Um, and in order to really get people to believe and follow Christ, it made more sense that they would follow them for their true belief rather than just because he was king, right? There were plenty of kings at that time, and people followed them blindly because they were the king and they had to. And some people followed them out of fear, some people followed them out of idol worship. But that's not what God wanted for Jesus. He wanted people to follow him literally till death, um, out of love, just true love. And that's exactly what he did. And that's, how his birth and life came about. And so from that, you have another big tradition today that a lot of the churches still, uphold, is the nativity scene. Every church, I think, across America, for all different types of religions in the Christian and Catholic denominations, Baptist, Lutheran, whatever, I'm pretty sure they all put up nativity scenes depicting the birth of Jesus Christ, right? So that's a tradition that we still carry out. Now it's become very commercialized. It's part of, commercials. I'm pretty sure it's even been in a Coca-Cola commercial. Does that make nativity scenes evil? No, right? Also, they're much bigger today. Some of them are live nativities at churches where they have real people act as the characters and put on a whole show and bring in real animals. That's a more bigger commercialized way of doing just a little, display of statues on a church lawn. But it doesn't make it evil, right? So I think a lot of people get fixated on all of these traditions and things. And just because some of them have pagan roots, they lump everything in together and say the entire holiday is evil and it should not be celebrated. All because of those things and because Jesus himself doesn't tell us to celebrate his birth. Well, he doesn't tell us not to. Also, back to the trees. Another thing people do is they put a star on top. And, many people will say that was a pagan thing too. And it's the, uh, I don't know, pentagram or whatever it is. Or some people will say it's the Star of David. But some people believe that it's a representation of the star that guided the wise men to find Jesus, at his birthplace. Um, so, I'm sure it's different for everybody, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't make it evil. Plus, God created stars in the sky, so they can't be evil if God created them, right? And some people do an angel. Some, houses, everybody's different the way they celebrate the holiday. And some people say that the angel is a representation of the angel Gabriel that came and told Mary and Joseph that they were going to bear the child that would be the Messiah. So, all these things are not evil just because people have commercialized them or made them into idols in their own lives. It doesn't make those things inherently evil, and it doesn't mean that you can't participate in the celebration of Christmas in some way. So anyway, my point in all this is that um, the traditions themselves and the things that we do surrounding the holiday of Christmas are not inherently evil. So for the people who are, boycotting Christmas, I mean, you have the right to do whatever you want. If that's what you want to do, that's what you can do. But every action that we take in this life will have an equal and opposite reaction, and that's so true. But more importantly, as a parent, the way that you handle things will definitely have take a toll on your children. So if you ban Christmas from their lives, likely it's only going to make them rebel when they get older and go crazy with Christmas to the point where they turn it into a false idol worship in their life. And the same thing could be true about the people who go overboard with Christmas. It's probably why a lot of these people are rebelling now, is because their parents were crazy about it, went overboard, and made Christmas into this huge spectacle that maybe their children just decided, I don't want any part of that in my life, so I'm just going to do away with it altogether. If you're a Christian and you choose to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, you can do that. You have the right to do it. You have the free will to do it if that's what you so choose. If you decide to celebrate Christmas, the traditional holiday, where you do, all these different things, decorating a tree or, giving somebody a gift that you love, drinking eggnog, whatever it is that is your tradition, you can do that. There's no issue in that. There's nothing evil about it. It's if you make those things your idols. You don't want to have false idols, okay? And that's a direct word from God. But I think the only thing that I agree with the people who are against the Christmas traditional holiday is painting this picture of Santa Claus as a real person. But the real issue is the lying to your children. That's something that you don't want to do, whether you're a Christian or not a Christian. You don't want to lie to your children. Your children trust you. You're probably the only two people in the world, the mother and the father, that the children trust without question. You have siblings, you trust them, but then you get a little older and you see that they don't know everything, and you trust them a little less, or maybe they took your toy and you trust them a little less, because just naturally your relationship grows that way. But parents are the two people that children usually can trust more than anybody, and it typically is 100% until the parents do something that makes them untrustworthy. If you spend your life, or your child's life, their entire childhood, lying to them about something, the day that they find out it's not true, even if they logically say, oh, I understand you lied to me because you wanted to, keep the magic, quote unquote, of Christmas alive. Subconsciously, they're never going to forget that you betrayed them, that you lied to them for years throughout their entire childhood. When they thought they could trust you, you painted this whole elaborate scenario of something that was not true. And then they believed it for probably somewhere between 5 and 10 years, depending on the child. That absolutely breaks trust between a child and a parent. My advice, don't lie to your children. Treat Santa Claus like any other character out there in a movie or a TV show or, just out in the world in pop culture. You're not going to tell them, you're not going to spend every day trying to convince them that Superman is real. But there's plenty of Superman movies and cartoons and comic books, and there was a show, and, many different people played that character. Teach your child Santa Claus is a character like any other, fictitious character that Hollywood or the media or whatever puts out. Because you're not going to be able to hide that from them, especially around Christmas time. Everywhere you go, people decorate their homes with Santa, statues or figurines or whatever. Now the new thing is the elf on the shelf. Everybody's been doing that for the last 10 years. You have all these, depictions of Santa Claus in commercials and movies and TV shows and whatever, all these different forms of entertainment. Not to mention, you might go out in public and there's a Santa Claus at a mall or a Santa Claus doing an event somewhere. You don't want to have to spend the entire month of December shielding your child from that, because they're only going to hate December. They're going to hate Christmas, and they're going to probably hate you because you're always trying to keep this thing from them that is going to pique their curiosity. All their friends know, all their friends are a part of. They're going to feel left out, and they're going to resent you for it. At least that's my opinion based on observations. So I would say, be honest with your child. Tell them, yeah, there's Santa Claus, but he's not real. He's just a character like any other character in a movie or a TV show. And around Christmas time, some people celebrate Christmas in different ways, where some people take Santa seriously and make it a part of the culture in their home or their life, and some people don't. Um, but I find it's best to not lie to your child at all. Don't lie to them about Santa as being real, but don't lie to them about Santa by trying to hide the whole holiday and all the traditions that surround Christmas in the material, commercialized way from them completely. Find a happy medium where you're honest with your child, but you set boundaries. You establish that it's fake, but we can still partake in the enjoyment of it. Just remember not to have a false idol. Don't make something above God and birth of Jesus Christ, which is what Christmas is supposed to be about. So that's, basically my advice for parents especially, and especially speaking to the millennials and the Gen Zs who are having children or have children. We're going to be doing things differently than our parents' generations. So, there will be some changes that we make, especially to the holidays and things like that, because we didn't like some of the things that our parents did. Now that we're older, we are able to do things differently with our children. But you don't want to go the extreme the other way, because all it's going to do is in one generation, your children are going to go the extreme back to the way your parents were, the way that you didn't want them to be. You got to find a happy medium so that you can hopefully get the result that you're looking for in your parenting. And most importantly, just make Christmas, if you celebrate it, a fun holiday that brings family together, allows people to break bread, eat good food together, make memories, share stories, whatever it is, catch up, reunite with people you haven't seen in a while, and focus on the birth of Jesus Christ, because that's really what Christmas is supposed to be about. There are non-Christians that celebrate Christmas because they celebrate the commercialized aspects of it, and that's fine too. But if you're a Christian, like I said in the beginning of the video, the question was, should Christians celebrate Christmas? My advice, they should celebrate true meaning of Christmas, the birth of Jesus Christ, and teach that to their children. And just don't lie to your kids, but make the holiday fun. Don't make it stressful. Have a good time. These are memories that you're going to make with your children and your, family. And, not everybody is going to be there forever. So enjoy these moments while they last. But that's my little short Christmas video. Hopefully that, painted a clearer picture for some people who were on the fence. Maybe some people are a little bit more conspiratorial minded, or, they're just boycotting Christmas for whatever reason. Hopefully that lightened the blow a little bit. And for the other people who are super into the tradition of it, hopefully my explaining about not worshiping false idols will help you take your foot off the gas a little bit with Christmas, and not get so caught up in everything being perfect just the way you want it. Instead, just enjoy the holiday, have a good time, and Merry Christmas to everybody, and Happy New Year. I should have one more video, hopefully 2 before the end of the year. But with the holidays, it's going to be a little different. And that's it for this video. Going into next year, we'll definitely do a lot more content. A lot of different things are going to be happening in the new year, especially with the new presidential administration coming in the end of January. So we're going to have a lot more to talk about on this channel. But that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next one. All right, everybody, I just want to take a moment to promote my children's book. This is Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this is a little sneak peek on the inside. It's a great book. It's a children's book. I actually wrote this for my son, and it's available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, Bookshop.org, and a lot of other online platforms. But more importantly to me, it's actually available in a lot of bookstores throughout the country. You can find out which ones are closest to you on my Instagram page. We highly recommend that you shop local, buy from a local bookstore. So if you are looking to, get a children's book for you or anybody you know, or even with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to, buy a children's book as a gift. Definitely get it from a bookstore that's local to you. But if you absolutely can't get it from one of the bookstores that are currently carrying it right now, and we're in about 15 or 16 different states across the country, so it may actually be in your state, and it could even be local to you. But if you can't get it from the physical bookstore, check out our Amazon storefront. The book's available on there right now. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, You may want to do your Christmas or Hanukkah or holiday shopping early, and you can even order it from our Amazon storefront and ship it directly to whoever you're gifting it to. But it's available on those platforms, Amazon storefront and bookstores and other websites that I mentioned. But I want to take a moment here to look at the storefront just to give you an idea of some other stuff that we have available on there. These are products that we highly recommend. They are things that we use in our daily lives, and it's all organized by category. So it's a lot easier to, shop for the holidays and specifically for things that interest you, particular categories. Available right now, many different items on our storefront. If you can see here, 61 items just in women's apparel, fall decor, because right now we're in fall, 26 items, kitchen items, baking specifically, things for around the house, children's toys, even stuff for parties. If you're trying to save money on a party and throwing your own, occasion, you can even buy some cool gadgets here to help you, put on a better party. Health and wellness items here, even stuff for Christmas. And there's the book right there. So you can get it from the storefront. You can get it from the bookstores, like I mentioned. But it's available on all these different platforms. It's really easy to find and gift to somebody. Also, I want to show you the apparel shop, and these are some clothing items that we actually produced. So if you're looking to get some cool apparel items, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, leggings, even accessories, cell phone cases, women's makeup bags, fanny packs, coffee mugs, all different types of stuff, even some, art, all different categories here, apparel, homeware, accessories, drinks, even digital items. It's all on this store, healthybodygoodssoul.com. Anything that pertains to you or somebody that you're looking to get a gift for the holidays. A lot of great designs on here, a lot of cool designs that we actually custom created. Stainless steel water bottles, especially now with the fall and winter. A lot of cool hoodies and long sleeve shirts. This is a really cool one, I think, for women. The original Be Your Soul apparel, that one's actually really popular. People tend to like that. This one's one of my favorites. The free shirt. It's the American flag and it says free and that says not property of the United States government. That one's pretty cool. Got all different types of tank tops, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, tote bags, coffee mugs, even some items for kids, backpacks. So if you're the type that likes to, plan ahead, I would definitely recommend ordering from the Amazon storefront or the apparel shop within the next couple of weeks to get everything in time for the holidays. Use code SAVE15 on the apparel shop to save 15% off everything on the storefront. So order within the next week or two and you'll definitely have everything in time for the holidays. Definitely check out all the links to everything, the Amazon storefront, the book, and the apparel shop in my bio on all my platforms, Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. But you can also find them in all the show notes for every episode that I post and get all your orders in time for the holidays. All right, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps the channel continue to grow. And put in the comments things that you would like me to talk about and make videos on for the future. And I will definitely do my best to do that. Stay tuned for the next one.